Okay, thank you so much, Erin, for a really, really good intro to invasive species, so I don't have to talk about all of that. Has anybody heard about the coconut rhinoceros beetle? Hopefully you have by now. It's kind of another big pest that we're dealing with currently. So just to start off, I'm the outreach specialist for the coconut rhinoceros beetle. My name is Kailee. And so I go around talking to a whole bunch of different people, especially people like landscapers, people that work in the area, people that live in the areas that we have the beetle, because it's not all around the entire island. And I'll continue on into getting into where the beetles are found and things like that, which you should know that we have found beetles on LCC property. So they're around, very close. So just a couple of contact information to begin off. So the 643 PEST is our state pest hotline. That's already what Erin also went over. So it's a pretty easy number to remember. If you forget, they are on all of our traps, so you have no reason to forget. And we have 3,000 traps around the island, so I'm pretty sure you can find one. Besides that, we have a couple of emails, stoprhino@gmail.com. And we're also using Beetlebusters HI. I'm kind of switching over because if you looked up Stop Rhino, it's about rhino poaching, and that's not really what we do. So we are housed by the Department of Agriculture. We have a lot of our support from the department. And we work with the University of Hawaii to do a lot of our research into better ways to get rid of the beetle. So to begin, I'll show you a nice little video of the beetle itself. So this is the coconut rhinoceros beetle. So typically we say that he's about 2 inches big, so about the size of your thumb. Really, really big beetle. We've never had something that's like this before. Besides that, it's completely black, and we'll show you the beetles in a little bit too. They have that horn on their head, but sometimes the horn can be a little bit smaller because the females have a smaller horn typically. But in general, they're also night active, so you wouldn't usually see them flying around during the day. And they're able to fly, yeah. So they can definitely get up to the top of coconut trees, which is kind of why it's in the name, coconut. So besides how you may feel about this, where it's kind of gross or whether it's kind of cute, we think they're cute, but you can think however you think. This is the kind of damage that they can do. And this is at Iroquois Point, so not too far away, right? Just right by Eva Beach area. And this is the worst damage that we've seen on our island so far. And this has been over probably a few years of having the beetle in the area. And eventually the beetles can definitely kill trees, okay? So, but good thing is that this was taken about almost 2 years ago now, and now the trees are actually looking pretty good. Hopefully, you know, we'd like to think that it's because of our response program that we've been capturing beetles, we've been trying to figure out ways to get rid of them, so they're looking pretty good. So just because the beetles are feeding on the trees doesn't mean that the trees are just done for. It would really have to do severe damage to them. But a good representation of that is in Guam, actually. So in Guam, they've had the beetle for about 10 years now, and they're going to lose about 50% of their trees. So it's really, really severe in Guam. They have it. There's no way they're going to get rid of it. So obviously, this is something that we don't want to happen here. Yeah. So this is the kind of typical damage that we see on coconut trees. In particular, it's a little bit easier to see on coconut trees than some other palms. So what the beetle is doing is that they're headed straight for the middle of the palm tree. And when they're doing that, they eat through some of the emerging fronds right in the middle. And so they eat through those emerging fronds, and when the frond comes out and spreads out, that's why it has these big, what we call V-cuts in them. So it's not like the beetle is eating like in that shape on the tree. Besides that, the other thing that we'll see and look for are called boreholes. So that's what we're passing around now. So it's about quarter to about $half size holes that go straight through the frond. And if you can imagine how tough, you know, coconut fronds are, these beetles getting through that and making giant holes in them, they're really, really strong beetles. But besides that, like, there's nothing else on the island that we know of that can do this kind of damage. So once you see those holes, it's like for sure coconut rhinoceros beetle. Because rats can sometimes do like a kind of gnaw at the sides of the fronds, but there's nothing that goes just straight through. So definitely if you see any kind of these damage, the V-cuts or the boreholes, you should definitely report it to us. Take some pictures if you can and just send that to us. So just because coconut is in its name doesn't mean that that's the only thing that they go after. So generally they go after pretty much any type of palms. So some of our native and endemic lolu and fan palms are in danger because of this beetle. as well as date palms and royal palms. So this would be definitely an impact to our landscapes, obviously, Hawaiian landscaping. And even if it ever got to the mainland, of course, it would devastate some of their date industries and things like that too. The damage can look a little bit different, but generally we're still looking for these holes. We'll look for the bore holes. And even on the fan palms, you can kind of see like where the beetles are boring into that, yeah. In any case, if you kind of think it might be suspicious, then definitely let us know. And once again, so coconuts, palms, but they're also going to go after a lot of agricultural crops eventually as well. So things like taro, sugarcane, pineapple, papaya, cacao. This is all things that we have here, of course. So it would be a very, very big agricultural pest as well. So golf courses, I include this because beetles like golf courses, just like people do, but for other reasons, of course. One being that there are a lot of palms on golf courses, right? So that's a lot of food source. There's another thing that they like humid and hot areas. So because the golf courses are always irrigated, it makes that kind of that nice environment for them. As well as the fact that golf courses always have mulch piles around. You probably have never seen it, you may have never seen it, but we notice it because those are potential breeding sites for the beetle. So the beetle has somewhere to feed and somewhere to breed, they're happy over there. And obviously golf courses are a big money source for our economy as well, so this is also very important. Okay, so the beetle came from originally around Southeast Asia. Anywhere in like the Philippines to India and those kind of places. So the Philippines have had it for a long, long time. Filipinos always know that they go home and they know what the beetles are for sure. Eventually they made their way over to places like Samoa, probably in about the 50s or so. And then Guam, like I showed you, in about 2007. The first one was found here around the Honolulu International Airport in December of 2013. So we've been dealing with this beetle for now over 3 years. And so we think that more than likely, because obviously where it was found was that it probably came over by plane. So it was just a hitchhiker, like Aaron was saying, some of them do. So that's probably how the mode of transportation that they got here. By the time that we found this infested site, it was like a big mulch pile, and we got actually probably about 700 to 800 grubs out of that, the larva. So it was already a pretty heavily infested site by the time that we found it. Okay, so as it relates to where we are today, so we are in this red box here, the Leeward Community College. And just so you know, just generally where we are and how everything is going around here, all these little green dots are actually where we've been finding beetles. The bigger ones, the yellow ones, are where we've been finding up to 6 to 10 overall in a trap. So that's over the period of, lately about a year, I think ago, we started finding beetles in this area. But it started, so airport is like down here, so that's kind of probably what happened, is that they were moving up this way. So they're definitely on Pearl City Peninsula. All these little blue things are mulch piles, which we know and record every single one as much as possible, because we go and survey that all the time. So there's actually, mulch. I don't know if you guys have been to the gardens back there, yeah. So we actually go through that quite often as well, just to make sure. And we've never found a breeding site on this property, so that's good. Besides that, we've got also damaged trees here. We've got some on at the Urban Garden Center for sure too. So just be on the lookout is the idea here. We're trying to be in contact with as many people in this area, of course, just so that they know what's going on and what to look for. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay, so we'll go over a little bit of the life cycle here, and I'll pass this guy around while we do that. So in case you haven't seen if you want to see it later too, the case is right in here. They have it on display for a while, so you can come and visit your beetles anytime you want. So it starts off as an egg, and then after that it'll turn into larva, which it has about 3 stages usually. So the smallest one will be about ½ an inch or so, and then it just keeps on eating and getting bigger and bigger. It molts and sheds, and then the biggest one will get to be about 3 inches. So you'll see that in there. So 3.5 inches. They're really big larvae. And after that, it'll turn into a pupa, which is exactly kind of like a chrysalis of a caterpillar. Same idea. And then it'll turn into an adult. So a lot of people will see like a smaller beetle of a different species, and then they'll say like, oh, I found a baby one. Well, the way that this life cycle goes, it doesn't really work that way. So once it emerges as an adult, it doesn't really get bigger or smaller or anything like that. So generally, about 1.5 to 2.5 inches is how big the beetle is. So you'll never find like a 1/2-inch beetle or anything like that. It's probably another kind. In any case, once again, if you kind of forget how big they are or whatever it is, just send us a picture. It's easy for us.
Are all beetles bad?
No, that's definitely not the case. We definitely have a lot of beneficial beetles. This guy has no benefit to us, though.
Does it have any like predators at all?
So we have definitely known that the mongoose like eating the larvae. And mongoose like to go digging through mulch piles and things like that. So there was one time actually that we picked out a lot of larvae from a mulch site. We put it in a bucket, they went to lunch, and the mongoose came for lunch as well. And they were just like having a feast in there. So definitely the mongoose like that. And that's actually one of the ways that we're doing some research is we collect some mongoose poop and we can test and see if they've been eating coconut rhinoceros beetle. So we yes, exactly. Yep. If anything, the egrets might like it too. Mm-hmm.
Are these larvae just swollen from juices?
No, that's how big they are. Yeah.
They're so big, and then they turn into a small adult.
So what I kind of understand from my general sense of entomology, so when they're as grubs, they eat as much as possible, so they get really beefy. But once they start turning into that, into the pupa, once they start turning into this, they actually like shed everything. So they get rid of all their waste, and then they kind of turn into like goop. And then they have to like restructure and stuff like that. So that's why they kind of just shrink down like that. And then they turn into the adult in there. So it's really crazy how they do it. It's called a holometabolism, yeah. So I can't tell you exactly how they do it, but they kind of shrink down after. Yeah, definitely, yeah. So, but you know, the coconut rhinoceros beetle, even though that one gets huge, you know, they all start off small. So there's other larvae that you'll see out when you're like in the field and stuff like that and looking through mulch. The most common one you'll probably find is the oriental flower beetle. So you probably have seen this beetle flying around during the day. So once again, that's different, yeah. So this guy, the oriental flower beetle is active during the day. Coconut rhinoceros beetle, you'll only see them at night for the most part. So a couple of, once again, so besides the beetles that you can obviously now is very, very different. So the larva can be kind of hard to tell. So one of the ways that we can tell the difference is by there's a little line, it's called a raster at the end of the oriental flower beetle. We actually have live ones that we can show you too a little bit later. Besides that, the head of the oriental flower beetle is usually much smaller. But once again, when they're both small, it's kind of hard to tell. One of the best ways that I like to show the difference is how they crawl. So the oriental flower beetle will kind of flip on its back. Hopefully I have this actually. Yeah, there we go. So the coconut rhinoceros beetle will kind of stay on its side and it never like straightens out or flattens out on its back. The oriental flower beetle will do the opposite. So they like to flip flat on their back and then they crawl kind of in a straight line like that. Kind of weird. Yeah, the oriental flower beetle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're kind of cool like that, though. There's another one, the Chinese rose beetle. I think you guys might have some of those back there, too. The Chinese rose beetle is opposite. So they like to be on their stomach, and they crawl on their stomach. So once again, if you forget which one is which and you're not quite sure, then always just let us know. Give us a picture. Oops. That didn't sound good. Okay. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen these things hanging around. There's 3,000 on the island, like I said. So you're surrounded. You're covered for the most part. The way that these guys work is there's usually a solar panel that feeds to a UV light right in the window. And then there's also attached to that green wire is usually a little foil packet. It's a pheromone lure that's specific to the coconut rhinoceros beetle. So it'll see that lure at night, see the light, and then smell that lure. It'll just hit the side of the trap and just fall on the bottom. So there's nothing in there that's like killing them or anything like that. And later on, we'll just come around and check the bucket. Mm-hmm.
If we're growing like any palm, like even though it's not like infected by that, should we still put the trap up?
So we do this pretty methodically, actually. So it depends on where you are. But if we do see like your property in particular as being an area that might have beetles, yeah, you can definitely request, and then we'll try and figure it out and see if we would want to put one up. And it's no charge and anything like that. No harm in asking if you want one. Yeah.
What keeps the beetles inside?
Okay, so I wish I could show you, but the way that this is, because it has those veins on there, the holes that are in the bottom of this is only about that big. So if you can see the one where the wings are out, yeah. So it's too big to fly out. The sides on here is too, yeah. So it can't crawl out either. Yeah. But sometimes, so we usually have a little hole here for drainage, because obviously, like if it rains and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting because one of the traps that we've seen, we got a call that this guy was like, oh, I think there's a beetle coming out of your trap. Because he was in there for a few days, he had managed to scratch his whole head was sticking out of there. So these, once again, like if you see like how tough these cups are too, if it only took him a few days to like practically scratch himself out of there, that's pretty tough. You guys are crazy. So, and just so you know, we made those holes smaller, so hopefully they won't be able to get out. We've never seen them actually escape from our traps anyway. Yeah, any other questions on that? Yeah, okay, cool. So, as I said, we have about 3,000 traps on the island. So don't be scared of this picture because this is not where all the beetles are. It's mostly a monitoring system, so we have the traps all around the island, but that's just to make sure we know where the populations are, yeah. So this is a picture of where we're actually finding beetles. So as I said, it began around the airport area. So that's why we have, this is Momala Bay Golf Course, if you guys know where that is. So there was a lot of beetles found there early on. And then it kind of spread around Joint Base Pearl Harbor mostly. Eventually we found them quite around Iroquois Point and Ewa Beach. And that's kind of where we get most of our beetles right now, still. We've been able to mitigate quite a few of the breeding sites, but we're still having issues finding more because we think that they're kind of putting little batches here and there. It's been hard to find those. Eventually, they made their way, like I said, onto Pearl City Peninsula, so like where we are today, and then just kind of sporadically around Ewa and things like that. There was also a small little population in Nanakuli. So you were asking about West Side earlier. I don't know if you live there. You live there? Okay, so it was more particularly Maili area. So there was a small population that was on that side. Our typical thing that when we find beetles in areas that we don't have them, we throw up a bunch of traps and we do a lot of outreach and we talk to a lot of people. So basically, we haven't found beetles there in about 4 months now. So we're just crossing our fingers, hopefully. So, but that, takes a lot of work, of course. We did a lot of surveys in there, never found a breeding site, so hopefully that's just done. Did you have a question?
Have you guys seen any on North Shore at all?
Nothing on North Shore, nothing on the east side. The only things that we have a few that we've found in kind of random places. One in Barbers Point. We had one up in Mililani, even like one in Waikiki area, Diamond Head. Those are probably hitchhikers. And so a little bit different from like the little fire ants where she said that you need to get the queen. These guys, if there's a pregnant female and she just happens to be transported, that could become a breeding site. So it's a little bit easier maybe to spread, to have a big colony. Yes?
If you find a breeding site, how do you treat it?
So breeding sites, okay, so this is a little bit more difficult. We like to just pull them out physically because we don't want to be spreading any pesticides or anything like that, especially because all these areas are so close to water, the ocean and things like that. And that would be really bad, of course, if they get into the ocean. So we're not really in the business of spreading pesticides right now. Plus, we're still testing, actually, pesticides because there's nothing right now that's on the market that will kill this big beetle. So still working on that. But as far as, we use sometimes a netting to put over that just to prevent more beetles from coming in and out. But other things that we've recommended in the past is just to search every once in a while. We also make sure that if you're doing composting, actual composting, to make sure that the heat stays up, because if it's around 130, 140, the beetles won't be able to live in there. But once again, like if you find something that's infested, just let us know and we'll do whatever we can to mitigate that problem. Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, so breeding sites are anything with decomposing plant matter. So it's mostly like compost piles, decomposing green waste, definitely in like rotting stumps, coconut stumps especially. I'll kind of show you a little bit of a picture there. So like I said, if you have a pile, a green waste pile, and you don't have any use for it, get rid of it. It's better not to have the potential at all, of course. Another thing that we like to recommend is to keep it as dry as possible because they usually need a little bit of moisture, and to turn it all the time. That agitation of the piles will just, won't be as likable to the beetles. And if you're spreading mulch, to also try and spread it as thin as possible because anything standing piles, of course, will be better for them. Also, mulch bags. So like compost or mulch bags, the kind that you get from like Walmart or from Home Depot and stuff like that, they can get into that and breed in there too. So if you have those kind of things at home, try and keep it, in an area, an enclosed area, something like that, so that they can't get to it. Other types of breeding sites, as I said, was like a rotting coconut or a dead standing tree. So what Guam is having problems with is that these dead standing palms that the beetles have fed on and killed the tree, those themselves can become a breeding site. So that's pretty scary. It's a bad cycle. And actually just recently in Evo Beach, we found a rotting stump, just about this high. And the owner had knocked it down. It opened up and about 6 beetles were just staring at us in the face. And we were dead, which was kind of weird, but that we just found 6 beetles in there and brought it back to the office and kind of dissected it more and found 4 more. So that was definitely a breeding site right in that stump. And it's kind of scary to think that 10 was still in there, how many of them came out, So we just recommend to get rid of those kind of things. If you have questions about that, definitely let us know beforehand, before removing that too, especially if you live in an area that has beetles. Definitely let us know before you do anything with that. This one is a tree that was actually brought down in Iroquois Point, so one of those really badly damaged trees that I was showing you earlier. So we brought that down and opened up the crown, and that had larvae in it too. But this one in particular was really rotten on the inside, so it was heavily, heavily damaged, almost about to die. So that's more of a thing that we would probably expect beetles and larvae to come out of, not usually like a healthy tree, hopefully. Not that we've seen yet. So as I said, some of the mitigation efforts. So this is called an air curtain burner. That's currently only in use on Joint Base Pearl Harbor land, though. This is something that the military has invested in because they have a lot of green waste on Joint Base Pearl Harbor. So what they've done, along with like the Department of Agriculture, is that everything that gets trimmed on base stays on base. So it's a major green waste management plan so that they're not spreading the beetle to other places. So what happens is that they're piling up these big green waste piles, and they are burning it using these air curtain burners. They're just really, really high heat. They have like ceramic walls. You're left with a little bit of ash at the bottom. So that's pretty much the best way to get rid of the green waste and to make sure that that can't become a breeding site at all. As I said, also, they've been using some of this Tekken netting, so it's basically a stronger bird or fish netting, and the beetles can't come in and out. They'll just get stuck. So that's something that we recommend, putting like a double netting on it or something. Okay, this is kind of more so for landscapers, but we do recommend, this is my landscaper friend here, because he's got his palm fronds there, but he has a little beetle on there. So this is something that we're definitely trying to stress to a lot of the landscapers in our areas that we work with, because they go back to their base yards. Their base yards are not in our areas that we have beetles, and they have always, of course, anybody has the potential to move beetles, because they just got to cling on and they'll be happy. So. As far as transfer sites, we're talking about them moving their green waste whenever they're dumping or something like that. So yeah, H-Power is one of the places that we recommend, and Hawaiian Earth. And if you ever went to Hawaiian Earth, they're huge mounds of compost, so you would think that they're like perfect breeding sites. But the way that they do their composting, those piles get up to 140, 150. Sometimes they spontaneously combust. So those piles are really, really way too hot for the beetles. We also have a ton of traps on their properties, never caught, and they're supposed to have a protocol in place as well. If they see any material that looks like might have damage on them, they're supposed to alert us. Okay, so some of the other research projects that have been going on. So this is mostly on the university side, so I can't speak on everything that they're doing. But one of the things that they've been working with are these tree treatments. So they've been injecting pesticide into the base of the tree. So it's a systemic one. It gets taken up by the tree. So when the beetle feeds on the tree, and then hopefully the beetle should die. So this is, once again, just very experimental, but this is one of the ways that we can get around spraying things foliarly. And of course, we don't want to be up in the trees, especially in the top of coconut trees and having, you know, the spray drift or anything like that. So this is one of the ways that we're trying to battle. We also are doing constant behavioral studies, so we're trying to see what kind of material they like, what time of day they come out. There's a bunch of stuff that we're always thinking about.
Do you know if injecting the pesticides impacts transpiration of the plant or the tree?
That's a good question. I have not heard of that, but I can probably get back to you. And that'd be kind of difficult to track probably. But yeah, that's a good idea. But most of the trees, just so you know, a lot of people have concerns about the coconuts, like if the pesticide is going to the coconut. Well, the trees that we are doing are all in like landscaped areas where they never have coconuts, or, you know, they start getting little coconuts and they cut them off instantly because of liability, right? So this is all landscaped areas that people are not actually eating the coconuts. But we've also seen that it's just very trace amounts of the pesticide that gets to the actual parts of the tree. So another research topic that we've been working on are controlled breeding sites. Does anybody want to guess what that is? Any idea? So basically, we are making these breeding sites, a tub of mulch that we make so that it's like their perfect, ideal type of mulch that they want to breed in. We put it in areas that we know that there are beetles, track them to this mulch site so that they'll breed in this and hopefully go on to live their life, but so long as they come back to breed just in this area so that we can come and take out the eggs and the larvae and things like that. We've actually been catching beetles and we're finding eggs and larvae in there, so to some extent it's kind of working. The idea is there anyway. But there's a lot of other things that we're thinking of, so if you think of anything, then just pitch it our way.
Why would they come back to where they were bred at?
So because in the areas that we're finding beetles, we're thinking that they're finding suboptimal areas to breed, like because we know that there's not a huge, great mulch site for them right now. So we think that they're going to like little places here and there. If we make something that's a great breeding site for them, then they'll only come to this one site and not go to all the little areas that we can't find. Okay, so this is just very simple notation about how to report. So know the date and time, know the general location, well, not general, try and be specific location if you're finding, you know, a damaged tree or a beetle, of course, and things like that. Give us a call, number's right here. Use gloves when you're handling the beetle if you find a beetle. They just go in mulch and things like that, so they're just not very clean. And they don't bite, they're not poisonous, so no worries on that side. If you do find them, and you saw the first video, they actually move really slowly, so they're not like crazy cockroaches and they're gonna fly in your face or anything like that. So we do ask to keep them alive because we're bringing them back to the lab so that we can do further testing and things like that. Other simple things, if it's a damaged tree, if you can, try to mark it, because of course, if you're standing in a grove of coconut trees, it can be kind of hard to find the one you're talking about sometimes. Take some pictures before and after trimming if you can, and collect any damaged fronds if you see it. Okay. I have one more video here. So this is a special treat for people because I've never seen this in person actually either, is watching the beetle actually fly. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah. So these guys can fly probably about 2 miles or so it's not that far. But once again, if they've got someplace to eat, someplace to breed, they'll be happy. They're not really going to go far. So if they're being transported far, it's probably because of accidental, I'd like to think, human, movement. So it's important to know. So just to end off, why we're doing what we're doing. Once again, to go over that, it would have major impacts on tourism. If you can only imagine our Hawaiian landscapes without palms, it's just kind of a crazy thought. and just culture. It's inbred into, of course, native Hawaiian culture and things like that, and just tourism in general. And then our native flora, because once again, we have some endemic and endangered species of, especially like the palms, the lolu palms and things like that. So this guy could potentially wipe them out. And then just a quick overview. So report everything that you see. If you find a beetle damage. If these guys are on the ground, just let us know about that too, where it is. Mulch, get rid of those piles if you don't need them, spread them. Notify us if you're moving material or if there's, once again, a dead stump or things like that. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, just let us know about those kind of things. For trimming, we also recommend that you have people that know what they're dealing with when it comes to this beetle. So just know, hopefully that they know about coconut rhinoceros beetle and where to dispose properly and things like that. And then of course spread the word. Just let everybody know how big this beetle is and how crazy they are and what they can do. And just to end off once again, so this is of course our iconic Waikiki. And almost every picture that we see on Hawaii News Now, sunrise and stuff like that, it's always got our palm trees in the background. And if you can only imagine if it were one day to look like this, so that wouldn't be too great. I don't think that would make news so much. Oh, in a different way, but yeah. So this is definitely a potential because you saw the Guam ones already. So very important. Yeah, any other questions? Sweet, I covered everything. Okay, so we have the other specimen of the Oriental flower beetle if you want to see that and how they crawl. I know you all do. But I think, yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.